And now, let all who have gathered in beloved community, whether in virtual space or in person, join our spirits in worship together.
Good morning. Whether you are joining us online or here in the sanctuary, welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin. We are a spiritual community dedicated to a free and responsible search for truth, meaning, and beauty. I'm Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford, visiting from Live Oak UU Church in Cedar Park. Thank you. I am a white, middle-aged woman, and my pronouns are she, her, as I know that you do. I care deeply for my friend and colleague, Reverend Chris, and I'm glad that I may be of service during this difficult time while his husband is receiving hospice care. And it is also a joy to be with you today, and please know that I bring love to you from the Live Oak congregation. I especially want to welcome you if you are new to the church. And if you are joining us remotely, if you can, please say hello in the comments and let us know from where you are viewing the service. If you are here in person, please join us for the social hour after worship. Either way, we invite you to fill out the online visitor form at austinuu.org. Simply click on worship, which will then show you a link to the form, and we would love to get to know you better. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whatever your abilities or disabilities, whether you've walked in or rolled in or joined in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. You belong here. We come from a long tradition of seeing a spark of the divine in every person. It's in this tradition, this living tradition, that I invite you to greet the holy among us, either in the comments or by turning to those around you. Now let us greet the holy that lives in each of us this morning.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Moan Barnard, and I am a middle-aged white woman. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of several seminarians here at the church. I am your lay leader for today. Let us light the chalice. This is the flame we hold in our hearts as we strive for justice for everyone. This is the light we shine upon systems of oppression until they are no more. This is the warmth we share with one another as our struggle becomes our salvation. Today's call to worship is entitled, We Meet Together, and it was written by Anne Arthur. We meet together to celebrate who we are, to share the insights which give meaning and hope to our lives, to learn from the wisdom of others that their truths may contribute to our understanding. We meet, we share, we learn, we celebrate our coming together. Now please rise either in body or spirit and let us sing together hymn number 113, Where is Our Holy Church?
one of the things that binds First UU together as a religious community is that the congregation has a common purpose. For First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin, that common purpose is the mission. The congregation wrote it together and put it on the wall in the sanctuary. Every Sunday, church participants say it together so that we may more readily carry it with us in our hearts throughout the week. Let us say it together now. Together, we nourish souls, transform lives, and do justice to build the beloved community.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Stokes. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to read you a story. I have a lot of books to share today. I'm not going to read them all. But I'd like to invite you up if you're children or anyone who just wants to come up and hang out with me up here. It's kind of fun. We get to be right next to the chalice and see what everybody looks like out in the pews. Come on up close and we can sit and talk about some things. So I think some of y'all went back to school this week after spring break. Did some of y'all go back to school? Was anyone really excited to go back to school after having a break? Was anyone really tired after daylight savings and spring break? Was it hard to get up in the morning? Did anybody wish maybe they didn't have to go to school one of those days? Yeah, I thought that might happen. So what's interesting about school is that sometimes we want to go and it's exciting, and sometimes we're like, oh, I'd really like to sleep in. But one of the things I've been learning about this week is about how many different people through time and all around the world have worked hard to make sure that everyone here can go to school. This is actually a really new idea that everyone, no matter where they're from, no matter how much money they have, no matter what color their skin is, no matter where their parents came from, whether they can read or not, that all of those people can go to school. This is a really new idea. So we're all actually really lucky that we get to go to school. And I wanted to show you, I started looking into this, and then I started finding so many different people throughout time that have actually worked really hard. And I wanted to read all these books to you, but each one of them was like 15 minutes long. But there's so many, and actually we could probably read a story every single week for the whole year and never be done with all of the stories of all of the people who have worked so hard throughout time and all around the world to make sure that everyone has the right to go to school. And it's still not true everywhere. There's a lot of places in the world where everyone doesn't get to go to school. So we'll take these out with us to the playground so you can see them more there. But today I'm going to read you a story about someone who helped make the world more fair and helped make our country more fair and really understood why going to school was important. This is called Education is Power, a snippet of the life of W.E.B. Du Bois, written by Lenny Williams and illustrated by Adua Hernandez. You can see him up there, or if you come close, you can see it here too. Education is power. Do we know that education means going to school? Yeah, it means learning, but most of us do that is going to school. Education is power, and it gives us a better understanding of the world around us. I'm pretty sure your parents and teachers have told you about the amazing things that an education can do for you. It gave me the ability to be a great learner and a great teacher, which are qualities a person needs to be a great leader. Hi, my name is W.E.B. Du Bois, and I want to tell you how education changed my life. Here's how it all happened. Early on in school, my teacher saw how excited I was about learning. She knew that learning new things was very special to me. One day she told me if I study really hard, not only would my education give me an honor roll, but it would also give me the ability to do whatever I wanted in life. Not only is education power, but education gives power to anyone who desires it. I lived by these words of the adults in my life and powered my way straight through to college. Actually, I loved learning so much that I went to 3 different colleges, even one in Berlin, which is in Germany. Did you know that education can take you all around the world? I went on to become the first African American to earn a doctorate degree from Harvard University, so feel free to call me Dr. Du Bois if you'd like. Learning and becoming a great leader was important, but it was also fun. I wanted to share the power of education with my friends so they could join in on the fun too. So I created a group known as the Talented 10th, and I helped start the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Creating those groups helped my friends and even complete strangers get an education. As a group of young leaders, we taught them history, math, reading, writing, and science. I didn't stop there either. I continued to share education everywhere I went. I visited the wonderful country of Ghana in West Africa. I also taught while I was in Ghana, but my favorite part about being in a country far away from home was learning many outstanding things about the many cultures and ways of living that were different from what I was used to in America. No matter where I traveled, one thing remained the same. Education was always needed. Education is power. Using your brain power to learn gives you the ability to be whoever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, and go wherever you want to go. You have the power to be an astronaut, a doctor, a teacher, or even the owner of your favorite sports team. Anything is possible, and there is no limit. Try learning something new every day, and you'll see. Education is power. Here's a picture of Dr. Du Bois. That's what he really looked like. So we can think about that when we're really sleepy in the morning. We can think about all of the people all around the world and all throughout time who have worked so hard so that we can go and get an education. And maybe it'll make it just a little bit easier to get out of bed, maybe. We can go talk about it more on the playground. So we're going to sing our way out. You want to come with me?
This is the time during the service when we commit to the mission and ministries of this church by making an offering. We give out of our own so that together we might build a better world. If you are new or visiting with us today, please allow the plate to pass you by. You are our guests. You can give in a few different ways. By going to austinuu.org and clicking on the link on the top right side of the page, or by texting your contributions to 84321, or by placing an offering in the basket the ushers are about to pass. Here in the sanctuary, the ushers will now collect our offering. all blessings on your gifts and all blessing on you as givers. In the GQ article entitled, "Can You Say Hero?" Tom Junod told this story about Mr. Rogers. He had already won his 3rd Daytime Emmy, and now he went on stage to accept Emmy's Lifetime Achievement Award. And there, in front of all the soap opera stars and talk show sinceratrons, in front of all the jutting, man-tanned jaws and jutting saltwater bosoms, he made his small bow and said into the microphone, "All of us have special ones who have loved us into being. Would you just take, along with me, 10 seconds to think of the people who have helped you become who you are?" 10 seconds of silence. And then he lifted his wrist and looked at the audience and looked at his watch and said softly, "I'll watch the time." And there was, at first, a small whoop from the crowd, a giddy, strangled hiccup of laughter, as people realized that he wasn't kidding. The Mr. Rogers was not some convenient eunuch, but rather a man, an authority figure who actually expected them to do what he asked. And so they did. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and now the jaws clenched, and the bosoms heaved, and the mascara ran, and the tears fell upon the beglittered gathering like rain leaking down a crystal chandelier. And Mr. Rogers finally looked up from his watch and said, "May God be with you," to all his vanquished children.
This is the time in our service when we center ourselves together. We breathe together. And breathing together, we sense one another's loving presence. Breathing in and breathing out, we follow our breath to a deeper place inside, a place of greater wisdom, a place where a spark of the divine resides within each of us. And now I invite you to think specifically of the teachers in your life, actual teachers who helped you become who you are, who put their love into action by serving as educators, those people who loved you into being. Let's spend a moment there, feeling our connection with them and our gratitude. I'll watch the time. And now, let's take that gratitude and push it outward. Imagine a child whom you want to also be loved into being by a great educator. Maybe it's a child you already know, or one in your imagination. Maybe it's you, thinking of what you needed but didn't get. Let's hold that child in our hearts for a moment. May we work to be able to bring those great educators and students together. I invite you now to light a candle if you are so moved. Candles representing sorrow, joy, hope, remembrance, resilience, whatever it is that you need to honor during this time. As we light candles, I invite you to keep in your mind and heart members of our community who are ill or in sorrow, and those who are celebrating joys. Let us hold the silence together throughout this meditative time.
Must have echoed that she can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, the Father's help did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picks, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh. And you know they love you. And you, all tender years, can't know the fears that your elders grew by, and so please fill them with your youth. They seek the truth before they can die. Teach your parents well, the children's hell is slowly going by, and free them on your dreams, the one they picks, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh. And you know they love you.
And now we light a candle for Chris and Wayne. And we light one last candle for all those for whom there is no one to light a candle. Do you believe in public-funded education that is common to all? Well, I guess I can just leave. I'm glad to hear that. I am in the right place. So my daddy, I'm a 7th generation Texan, y'all, was born in 1929. the start of the Great Depression. And he grew up in East Texas in a small town called Center, because it was the center of the county. Not real poetic, but there you go. He came from a family that did not have money, but he loved school. And he worked hard in school. And after high school, he went to Texas A&M, which at that time was a military school. And it was known as the school where all the poor kids went. And by kids, I mean white males. Texas A&M would not let in female or black students until the 1960s. So my dad was able to graduate with a degree in petroleum engineering, big thing, and he was class of 51. After that, he paid his debt to Uncle Sam, serving in the Army. This was during the Korean War. And eventually, he was able to provide a middle-class lifestyle for his family in a way that his father had never been able to. And this is what we call social mobility. And it was made possible because of that education system. Now, the system that benefited my father, it was working the way it was designed. It was designed for smart, hardworking, white boys, right? But then in 1954, the Supreme Court had the Brown versus the Board of Education verdict, and things changed. And now there was at least the possibility that this system, this public education system that led to social mobility, was now accessible to those who were not white and male. And ever since that time, there has been a concerted, organized movement to damage that public education system, because there are people who do not believe that it should be, in fact, common to all. If you feel like in the last few years that this movement has gone into overdrive, it is not your imagination. It absolutely has. But this is not something new that has happened. This has been a long time coming. The people who got our society to this point, they understood, and I will say it was an evil plan, they understood that it was going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And so they set up different things so that we could be where we are now, which in my mind is a fight for our whole public education system. And for us, as Unitarian Universalists, this is not political. This is hitting at our core religious values, our beliefs about what it means to be a person, inherent worth and dignity, and the idea that every person deserves to be able to try and fulfill their potential. And this also hits at our history. So in 1796, Unitarian Horace Mann was born. And he also grew up in an extremely poor family. His father was a poor farmer. There were many kids. And Horace often, practically every year, until he was about 20 years old, he was never even able to go out and get a complete school year. It was usually only 6 weeks out of every year that he could go to school. But he made the most of it. He loved to learn. He soaked it all up. They did have in his town a library. He read everything that he could get his hands on. And so eventually he was able to go to Brown University, where he became the valedictorian. After that, he went on to law school, he became a lawyer, and then he became a Massachusetts legislator. And, you know, it's really interesting. There seem to be two kinds of people, as the saying goes. But those people who had to go through a lot of hardship, had to really struggle to make their way in the world. And some of those people say, I made it, so can you. You can do it the hard way too. And then there are the people like Horace Mann who say, I don't want anyone else to ever have to go through what I went through. And so education to him was one of the big passions of his life. In Massachusetts, while he was a legislator, the governor created a new thing, a state board of education, and he became the secretary of it. And it was in that role that he was able to take all of these visions he had about creating a system so that everyone could reach their potential, or at least had the opportunity to do so. He created what is called the Common School movement. Now, common doesn't refer to like commoners, common as in for everyone. His vision is that we would have a public-funded system of education that was common to all. It was a radical idea. In his vision, all American students would go to these schools. They would sit side by side. He was a Unitarian. He did firmly believe in the equality of all people. And his vision was one where whether you were the child of a wealthy landowner or the child of a family that was in poverty, you would all receive the exact same education. The other thing that Horace Mann really believed in is all of this stuff. This was, mid-1800s. And all of this stuff that these other people, he had grown up hearing them talk about this country, the United States of America, and all that it could be. A place where, unlike England, it did not matter, it should not matter the circumstances of your birth. He really believed in it. And he knew that the key to that was education. And he even said, education then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of people, the balance wheel of the social machinery. It is a radical idea now, and it was a radical idea at that time. Even many of the people who we look back at the start of this country, people who considered themselves to be the great modern progressive thinkers, they weren't there yet. In 1779, Thomas Jefferson also supported the idea of a public education system, but he felt that there should be two tiers to it. One for the laboring class and one for the learned class. He did say that he thought that there should be enough, room in it that it could rake, his exact words, rake a few geniuses from the rubbish. Thomas Jefferson, boy, and that's a sermon for another day. Do you support public-funded education that is common to all? This was and is today a very radical idea. There are many people who do not want it. Good public-funded education, common to all, leads to social mobility. And with that comes a real opportunity for a reallocation of power. Underneath this idea of public education that is common to all is this idea of social mobility. Do you truly believe in social mobility, the vision of a society where a child is not confined to the circumstances in which they were born? We can look at other countries and we can see where there is no possibility for this kind of social mobility. My spouse and I sponsored a student from his private school education, just wait for a moment, from about middle school through college. He was in Nepal. Do we have anyone else here who has sponsored a student from Answer Nepal? Amazing program. By the way, education, even college over there is more like community college here, and it is, private education is way more affordable. I think it was like $500 or $600 a year. The person who runs it, Earl Canfield, is a Unitarian Universalist, and he is very clear about the ultimate goal of this program. It is not so much, it is to help the individual student, but the bigger goal, the one he always has his eye on, is to overcome the caste system of Nepal. Because this is the only way that it can happen. See, they do have public education. They have public education, but it is so inferior that if you are in a lower caste, you will never be able to move out of that caste. The only way for you to be able to move into a different caste is through this private education. I believe that this is the real vision for some of the people in our country. They want to have, I don't think, we often will say things when we hear about vouchers and stuff like that. We'll often talk about, oh, this is just a way for, the wealthy who are already paying for private education for their child to have a little more money in their pocket. Then sometimes we'll go all the way the other way and say, no, the whole goal here is to absolutely kill public education and get rid of it. I don't think so. I think this is the vision, Nepal, to create something that will take the existing caste system in the United States. We all know there is a caste system in the United States, right? To take that existing system and cement it in place. And this has been a long time coming. You really can't talk about the war on public education without talking about the Koch brothers. They've been part of this for a very, very long time. There was pushback to public education right after Brown versus the Board of Education. And we saw it, right? There were schools that literally would prefer to close their schools rather than integrate. But ultimately, that was not a long-term solution. And so there were brains that were trying to come up with, well, how do we make this happen? In 1980, David Koch ran for vice president on the Libertarian platform, and that platform said, we advocate the complete separation of education and state. Government schools lead to the indoctrination of children and interfere with the free choice of individuals. Government ownership, operation, regulation, and subsidy of schools and colleges should be ended. That was 1980. Charles and David Koch created a political machine that operates on the strategy of astroturfing. Do we have some people here who are familiar with this term, astroturfing? Astroturfing, well, I'm actually going to use the Merriam-Webster definition because it's really good. Organized activity that is intended to create a false impression of a widespread, spontaneously arising grassroots movement in support of or in opposition to something, but that is in reality initiated and controlled by a concealed group or organization, such as a corporation. There are so many different names. There are so many. It's just, it is overwhelming how many different little spontaneous grassroots organizations, or think tanks are all either started by and or funded by the Koch brothers. This is just a handful. Americans for Prosperity, Cato Institute, Mercatus Center, the Federalist Society, the Institute for Humane Studies, Institute for Justice, Freedom Works, Freedom Partners, Concerned Women for America, Young Americans for Liberty, Parents Defending Education, and of course, Moms for Liberty. Here's the sad thing, astroturfing often works. It worked just this past week. I think it was Lake Travis ISD. Because of a complaint, banned another book. It's happening in Houston. Now this is where the system has, because again, there's not just one way to try and solve this problem of good public education. The state has taken over Houston ISD here in Austin. Y'all have also been fighting that. But astroturfing often works. You take anxiety and fear and you combine it with bigotry. And it especially works in this fight on public education because evolution has wired our poor little human brains that when we think of our kids, we often go to the amygdala and anxiety rather than the prefrontal cortex and our best thinking. So when you combine anxiety and fear with bigotry, then that gets everyone stirred up. And then you have people, and this again is an organized, concerted effort. They provide terms for those who are on the ground, and they tell them to repeatedly use these terms. It's a way to bring in bigotry without having to admit that you don't believe in treating everyone equally. Used to, some of you will remember, in the 70s, it was busing, right? That was the code for, oh, I'm not against integration. I just don't think that children should be bused to somewhere else. Or neighborhood schools. Does anyone remember that one? Oh, we just want our kids to be able to go to their neighborhood school. It's the fact that it was in an all-white neighborhood was just incidental. More recently, in the last few years, it has been CRT, critical race theory, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And most recently, the one that I have heard the most is safety. Especially safety for girls. Not safety from shooters or anything that might actually help. Safety for girls is the code word for anti-trans rhetoric. You get people revved up and you give them the talking points. You can go find the talking points. None of this is hidden. You can go right now and Google. There is a school board guide produced by the Tea Party Patriots, funded by Freedom Works, which came out of Americans for Prosperity, aka the Koch brothers political advocacy group. 46 pages on a how-to guide for activists combating anti-American CRT. 34 pages on combating critical race theory in your community, an A to Z guide on how to stop critical race theory and reclaim your local school board. I want to read you one line from that one. It is important to note that whether CRT is currently in your school system is mostly irrelevant to the purpose of this document. Do you support public-funded education that is common to all? Now look, we never came anywhere close to realizing Horace Mann's vision, especially in terms of a common education. I don't believe that we ever will. People are always going to want a leg up, Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin, for their kids. But the vision is more relevant than ever. Public-funded education common to all that equips children to fulfill their potential, to break the prison of generational poverty. It is not only better for them, it is better for our entire society. In Nepal, the only way that you are able to break out of your caste is through being picked for a program that sends you to a private school. I believe that for some in the United States, that is the vision. A world with clear and rigid class boundaries that disproportionately correlate with race. Right now, this thing that you're hearing in the news, the difficulty to find unskilled laborers, right? Of course, they're not unskilled, but if you call them that, you can pay them less. Do you really think that none of the people with the top economic privilege, those billionaires out in West Texas who have been trying to manipulate things around vouchers and around public education, do you not think that they are wondering about the question of how do you come up with an unlimited source of laborers whom you can underpay and oppress? And this isn't just a matter for those who have kids or grandkids in school. It's for all of us. I ask you to support your school boards, find out what area you are in if you don't already know. You can go on the internet and read the agenda for school board meetings. Practically all of them are live streaming. Turn it on, see what is happening. When you start seeing hordes that are showing up there trying to attack good teachers, attack the school board members, get books banned, show up. You don't even have to talk. It's great when you do during those citizen comments, but if you see that there are big crowds pouring into that room trying to damage our public education, take one seat away from them just by sitting in it. And of course, vote at every school-related election as though it were a presidential election. Do you support public-funded education that is common to all? Real nice public education system you got here. Be a real shame if something was to happen to it. I invite you now to rise, either in body or in spirit, and let us sing together hymn number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky, verses 1 to 3.
Let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again.
Horace Mann said, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity." What will your victory be? May you go forward knowing that you are lovable and loved, and may you carry that love out into the world.
Thank